I walked into the most expensive restaurant in uptown Charlotte to find my family had already finished the feast. The only thing left for me was a bill for $6,240. My mother slid the folder across the tablecloth like a gift, smiling as she whispered the words that sealed their fate. We already tried swiping. They had no idea they just handed a forensic accountant the perfect paper trail. My name is Brooklyn Cox. In my line of work, you learn very quickly that numbers do not lie, but people do nothing but lie. I am a forensic accountant for Ledger Warden Forensics, a firm that specializes in tearing apart corporate veils and finding the rot hidden in the ledgers. I spend my days tracking embezzlement, tax evasion, and the kind of financial infidelity that destroys empires. I have spent the last 15 years training my brain to see the world not as a collection of emotions or memories, but as a series of transactions: debit, credit, asset, liability. Truth, fabrication. It was a Thursday night in uptown Charlotte, the kind of humid evening where the air feels heavy enough to wear. I had just clocked out after a 10-hour shift auditing a mid-sized logistics firm that was bleeding cash into shell companies in the Caymans. My eyes burned, and my lower back ached, but I was not heading home to my quiet, paid-off bungalow. Instead, I was walking into the Silver Magnolia, the most ostentatious steakhouse in the city. My phone buzzed in my clutch. It was another text from my mother. "Lorraine, hurry up. Brooklyn, it is our anniversary. Do not be disrespectful." I checked the time. It was 8:15. The invitation had said 8 o'clock. 15 minutes late. In my family, 15 minutes was enough time to be written out of the will, reinstated, and then guilt-tripped for the next decade. I pushed through the heavy mahogany doors. The air inside was conditioned to a crisp chill and smelled of truffle oil, aged leather, and old money. The hostess looked me up and down, noting my charcoal business suit, which was practical rather than flashy, and likely decided I was someone's assistant. "I am here for the Cox party," I said, my voice flat. She tapped her screen. "Ah, yes, they are in the private alcove in the back. Follow me." As we walked past tables of bankers and socialites, my stomach tightened. It was a familiar sensation, the somatic response of a body re-entering a toxic environment. I saw them before they saw me. They had taken the best table in the house, a semicircular booth upholstered in velvet, sequestered from the common rabble by a waist-high partition of frosted glass. My father, Hank, was leaning back, picking his teeth with a calmness that usually preceded a storm. My mother, Lorraine, sat rigid, her eyes scanning the room like a hawk looking for a field mouse. My younger sister, Sierra, was there, holding her phone up, the ring light case casting an artificial halo in her eyes, and next to her was Derek, her husband, a man who wore suits that were too shiny and watches that were too big for his wrist. I stopped at the edge of the table. The first thing I noticed was the silence of consumption. They were not waiting for me to order. They were finished. The table was a graveyard of gluttony. A silver platter that had once held a seafood tower was now just a pile of crushed ice and empty oyster shells. The T-bone steaks had been stripped to the bone. Several bottles of wine, the labels dark and intimidatingly French, stood empty like sentries. There was not a clean plate in sight. There was no menu waiting for me. There was not even a glass of water at the empty seat on the edge of the booth. "You are late," Lorraine said. She did not look up at me. She was adjusting the diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist. "I worked," I said, pulling out the chair. "I told you I would be there at 8. It is 8:17. "We were starving," Sierra said, pouting at her phone camera. She was recording. I could see the red counter ticking up on her screen. She was live, or recording for a story. "Brooklyn is always too busy for family. We had to start without you." "Did you save me anything?" I asked, looking at the devastation on the table. Hank chuckled, a wet, heavy sound. "You make good money, Brookie. You can order whatever you want. We just wanted to celebrate. 35 years. That is a milestone." I sat down. The waiter appeared instantly, hovering with a leather folio. He did not hand me a menu. He placed the folio directly in front of me. "The bill, madam," the waiter said. He looked uncomfortable, his eyes darting between me and my father. I stared at the black leather folder. The dynamic was so ancient, so predictable. It was almost boring. The setup, the guilt, the expectation. "Open it," Derek said, grinning. We went a little hard, but hey, it is a special occasion. Family first, right? I flipped the folder open. I let my eyes adjust to the total at the bottom. The number was typed in bold, in different font. $6,240.18. I did not blink. In my job, I have seen invoices for construction equipment that did not exist and consulting fees for toddlers. $6,000 was a rounding error in my day job, but here, at this table, it was a weapon. "Happy anniversary," I said, my voice devoid of inflection. I looked up at Lorraine. She smiled, a tight, saccharine expression that did not reach her eyes. She slid the bill closer to me with a manicured finger. "Since you missed the toast and the prayer, we figured it is only fair. You pay, and we will call it even for you being late." "Fair," I repeated. I reached into my bag, not for my wallet, but for my reading glasses. I put them on and pulled the receipt out of the folder. I smoothed it out on the table, ignoring the grease stain near the bottom. "What are you doing?" Sierra asked, her voice pitching up. "Just pay it. You are embarrassing us." "I am auditing," I said. My eyes scanned the line items. This was automatic for me. Item 1 through 4, Seafood Tower Royal. Quantity 2. Item 5, A5. Wagyu ribeye. Quantity 4. I checked the timestamp on the first order, 6:30 in the evening. "You ordered the appetizers at 6:30, I said, not looking up. "You texted me to be here at 8. You never intended for me to eat with you." "We got hungry," Hank grunted. "Stop being petty." I continued down the list. Item 12. Chateau Margaux, 2015. Quantity 3. I looked at the table. I counted 2 empty bottles. "Where is the third bottle?" I asked. Derek shifted in his seat. "Oh, we ordered a couple to take home. For the after party. You are invited, obviously. And 2 bottles of cognac, also marked to go." I read. I looked at the total again. $6,240. This was not a dinner. This was a raid. They had gorged themselves, stocked their liquor cabinet, and presented me with the invoice. I looked at Lorraine. "I am not paying this." The table went still. Sierra lowered her phone slightly, then raised it again, sensing drama. This was content. "Excuse me." Lorraine's voice dropped an octave. "After everything we have done for you, we raised you, we sacrificed for you, you make more in a month than your father made in a year. I am not paying for $6,000 of food I did not eat and liquor I did not drink," I said calmly. "Split the bill 5 ways, and I will pay for a side salad if I order one." Lorraine laughed. A sharp bark. "Do not be ridiculous. You are the only one with liquid cash right now. Derek's assets are tied up in real estate. Your father is on a fixed income." "That sounds like a budgeting issue," I said. "Not a Brooklyn issue." I started to push the bill back toward the center of the table. Then, Lorraine said it. The sentence that changed everything. The sentence that took this from a family dispute to a felony case file. She rolled her eyes and scoffed. "Just pay it. Brooklyn, God, you are difficult. We already tried swiping, and it did not go through. So you have to do it." I froze. My hand hovered over the leather folder. The air in the restaurant seemed to vanish. The noise of the silverware clinking at other tables faded into a dull buzz. "What did you say?" I asked. Lorraine looked flustered, realizing she had gone off script. "I said we tried to handle it, but there was an issue, so—" "You tried swiping," I repeated. "Swiping what?" If they expected me to pay, they would not have swiped their own cards. They knew they had no money. They intended to ambush me. So, if they tried to swipe something, it was not one of their cards. I looked at the waiter, who was still hovering nearby, looking terrified. Excuse me, I said. I did not raise my voice, but I projected it with the authority of someone who leads federal depositions. The transaction that was attempted before I arrived. Bring me the decline slip. No need for that, Hank said loudly, trying to wave the waiter away. Just a machine error. Let's go. Brooklyn, quit making a scene. Bring me the slip, I said to the waiter. Now, the waiter nodded and hurried to the pause station. You are being paranoid, Derek said, his laugh nervous. We just thought maybe you gave Mom a card for emergencies, to help out. I turned my cold gaze to Derek. I have not given this woman a cent in 4 years. I certainly did not give her a card. The waiter returned. He placed a small slip of paper on the table. I picked it up. Transaction declined. Insufficient funds. Card inactive. Card type Visa. Ending in 4921. My blood ran cold, then immediately hot. 4921. I knew that number. It was an authorized user card on my very first bank account. I had opened it when I was 22 and trying to help my parents build credit. I had reported that card lost 6 years ago after I noticed small, weird gas station charges. Lorraine had sworn up and down she had shredded it. She had not shredded it. She had kept it. For 6 years. Waiting for a moment when the limit might be high enough, or the oversight lax enough, to strike. They had eaten a $6,000 dinner on a gamble that an old stolen card would work, and when it failed, they waited for me to arrive to bail them out, planning to hide the attempted theft in the chaos of the anniversary. This was not just dinner. This was wire fraud. This was identity theft. I looked up at my family. They looked back, defiant, waiting for me to cave. They relied on the old Brooklyn, the one who cried when they yelled, the one who would pay $6,000 just to stop the public humiliation. They did not know the new Brooklyn. I stood up. Sit down, Hank hissed. People are staring. Let them stare, I said. I waved at the manager, a tall man in a pristine suit who had been watching our table with growing concern. He walked over briskly. Is there a problem, madam? He asked. Yes, I said. I held up the decline slip and the bill. My name is Brooklyn Cox. This bill belongs to these 4 individuals. This decline slip represents an attempt to use a financial instrument that was reported stolen 6 years ago. That is my name on the card. But I did not authorize the transaction, nor is the physical card in my possession. The manager's face went pale. I see. Brooklyn, Lorraine shrieked. She stood up, knocking her chair back. What the hell are you doing? It is a mistake. It is just an old card I found in my purse. Possession of a stolen financial device, I said, listing the statute in my head. Attempted fraud over $5,000. That is a felony in North Carolina. I looked at the manager. I am leaving now. I have not eaten anything. I have not ordered anything. I am not liable for this debt. However, these people have just consumed $6,000 of your inventory with no means to pay and attempted to use a stolen card to cover it. If I were you, I would call the police immediately to secure the theft of services charge. You bitch, Sierra screamed, dropping the phone. You are going to leave us here. I am not leaving you, I said, smoothing down my blazer. I am recusing myself. I turned on my heel. Grab her, Hank shouted to Derek. Do not let her walk out. Derek started to stand, but 2 large security guards who had been signaling from the entrance stepped forward, blocking the path between the table and me. Please remain seated, sir, the manager said, his voice dropping to a command. We need to sort out this payment before anyone leaves. I walked toward the door. I could hear Lorraine screaming my name. I could hear Hank cursing. I could hear Sierra crying about her followers. I pushed open the mahogany doors and stepped out into the humid Charlotte night. The valet looked at me, surprised to see me back so soon. Forget something, ma'am, he asked. No, I said, taking a deep breath of the heavy air. I just dropped off some baggage. I walked to my car, got in, and locked the doors. As I pulled away, I saw the flashing blue lights of a patrol car turning the corner, heading toward the Silver Magnolia. My phone lit up on the passenger seat. 12 missed calls. I turned the radio on. I did not smile. This was not a victory. This was just the opening statement. And I knew, with the certainty of a forensic auditor looking at a cooked book, that the real messy work was just beginning. The vibration of my phone against the nightstand did not sound like a notification. It sounded like an excavation drill. I woke up at 6:30 in the morning, not to the sunlight streaming through my blinds, but to the digital equivalent of a riot. My screen was a kaleidoscope of red badges and banners. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, even LinkedIn. The notifications were cascading down the glass so fast I could barely read individual names. I sat up, the headache from the previous night still throbbing behind my temples. I unlocked the phone and opened Instagram. The first thing I saw was Sierra's face. It was a reel. Posted 7 hours ago. She was sitting in the passenger seat of Derek's leased BMW, the interior dark, illuminated only by passing streetlights and the glow of her dashboard. Her mascara was smeared artfully under her eyes, a technique I knew she perfected in high school to get out of gym class. She was sobbing. "I just do not know what to do," Sierra whispered into the camera, her voice cracking. "We went out for Mom and Dad's 35th anniversary. My sister, she makes so much money. You guys, she works for this huge firm. She told us to pick the place. She told us to order whatever we wanted. She said she wanted to treat us because we have been struggling." She wiped a tear that looked suspiciously like a drop of saline. "And then she just left," Sierra continued, staring directly into the lens. "She waited until the bill came, laughed in my dad's face, and walked out. She left our elderly parents there with a $6,000 bill they could not pay. The cops came. My dad was shaking. I have never been so scared. I just cannot believe family would do this." The caption read, "Wealth changes people. Heartbroken for my parents tonight. Family trauma. Toxic. Sister. Rich but rotten." I scrolled to the comments. It was a bloodbath. Eat the rich. What a monster. Drop her. We need to have a talk with her. I hope she loses her job. Who does that to old people? Then I saw the tags. They were not just tagging my personal account. They were tagging Ledger Warden Forensics. They were tagging the North Carolina Board of Accountancy. They were tagging local news stations. "Ledger Warden, is this the kind of person you employ? A predator who abuses the elderly?" My stomach turned over. This was not just a tantrum. This was strategic warfare. Sierra knew that in my industry, reputation was currency. If I was seen as untrustworthy or morally bankrupt, my ability to testify in court as an expert witness would be compromised. She was trying to torch my career to keep warm. I opened my text messages. The betrayal deepened. It was not just strangers, it was family. Cousin Brenda, who still owed me $500 from a bail bond incident 3 years ago, had sent a paragraph-long text. I saw the video. "You should be ashamed. Brooklyn, blood is thicker than water. Fix this." Aunt Patty, who had not called me on my birthday in a decade, wrote, "Call your mother, pay the restaurant. You can afford it. Do not be sinful." The temptation to reply was physical. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to scream. I wanted to post the decline slip. I wanted to explain that elderly parents was a stretch for two people in their late 50s who spent their weekends gambling at the casino in Cherokee. I wanted to tell the world that Sierra's struggle involved buying designer handbags while claiming unemployment. But I stopped. In forensic accounting, we have a rule. Do not chase the noise. Chase the ledger. Engaging with an internet mob is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. They did not want the truth. They wanted a villain. If I posted a defense, I would just look defensive. If I argued, I would look petty. Sierra controlled the narrative because she spoke first, and she spoke with tears. I needed to speak with facts. And facts do not live on Instagram. They live in databases. I got out of bed and walked to my home office. I did not make coffee. I did not brush my teeth. I sat down at my desk and powered up my workstation. 3 monitors hummed to life, casting a blue glow over the room. "Okay," I said to the empty room. "You want to make this public, let us make it public." I logged into a secure skip tracing database that we used at the firm for background checks. It was expensive, comprehensive, and entirely legal for professional use. I typed in 4 names: Hank Cox, Lorraine Cox, Sierra Cox, Derek Miller. I started with my parents. The report generated in 30 seconds. I scanned the summary, and the red flags were so numerous they looked like a carnival. My parents were not just broke, they were insolvent. Their credit score was in the low 500s. I saw 3 charge-offs from major credit card companies in the last 12 months. That explained the swiping attempt at dinner. They had burned through every legitimate line of credit they had, but there was more. I scrolled down to the legal section. There was a pending lawsuit from a contractor for unpaid renovations on a property they used to rent. There was a lien from the state tax board for unpaid income taxes from 2 years ago. They were drowning. Then I saw something that made me pause. In the recent inquiries section, which shows who has been checking your credit, there was a hard pull from a company called Quick Cash Hard Money Lenders, LLC. The inquiry was dated 3 days ago. I frowned. Hard money lenders are the sharks of the financial world. They do not care about credit scores. They care about collateral. They lend money against physical assets, usually real estate, at predatory interest rates. Why were Hank and Lorraine talking to a hard money lender? They did not own a home. They had been renting a condo in Pineville for the last 5 years. You cannot get a hard money loan against a rental. You need a deed. You need equity. I highlighted the entry and moved it to my Investigate folder. That was an anomaly. And in my world, anomalies are where the bodies are buried. I moved on to Derek. My brother-in-law liked to present himself as a real estate mogul on social media. His bio read, CEO, investor, 7-figure mindset. I pulled his professional license status from the North Carolina Real Estate Commission database. License status, suspended. Reason failure to maintain escrow account integrity, pending investigation. I let out a short, cold laugh. The CEO was not allowed to sell a doghouse in this state. He had been dipping into client escrow funds. That was not just a regulatory violation. That was embezzlement. I cross-referenced his name with the county civil court records. He had 3 small claims judgments against him for unpaid consulting fees. He was running a Ponzi scheme of lifestyle maintenance, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and using Sierra's social media to make it look like he was winning. I sat back in my ergonomic chair. The picture was becoming clear. The dinner at the Silver Magnolia was not a celebration. It was not even really a shakedown for $6,000. It was a distraction. They were desperate. They were cornered by debt, legal threats, and a lifestyle they could not sustain. They needed a massive infusion of cash, not just a free steak dinner. The dinner was theater. They wanted me there to humiliate me, yes, but more importantly, they wanted me off balance. They wanted me busy fighting an internet mob. They wanted me distracted by guilt and public shame, so I would not be looking at what they were really doing in the background. When a magician waves his left hand, you look at the left hand. Meanwhile, the right hand is stealing your watch. Sierra's video was the left hand. What was the right hand doing? I looked back at the hard money inquiry on my parents' report. That was the key. They were trying to borrow a large sum of money. A hard money loan usually starts at $50,000 or $100,000. To get that, they needed an asset. I closed my eyes and tried to think like a criminal. If I were broke, with no credit and no assets, how would I get a hard money loan I would need to steal an asset? My phone buzzed again on the desk. It was not a social media notification this time. It was a push notification from my personal banking app. Transaction alert. Attempted charge of $1. Vendor validate check services. Card ending in 4921. I stared at the screen. They were doing it again. The card ending in 4921 was the same stolen card they had tried to use at the restaurant. The card I had declared lost years ago. Someone was trying to run a $1 ping transaction. This is a common tactic used by credit card thieves. They run a tiny charge to see if the card is still active before they try to slam it with a massive purchase. But why try it now? I had already told them at the restaurant that the card was dead. I had told the manager it was stolen. Unless they were not trying to buy dinner this time, the timing was specific. 8:30 in the morning on a Friday. Banks were opening. Financial institutions were coming online. They were checking the card not to buy something, but to verify identity. Some older verification systems use a small card charge to validate that a person is who they say they are. If they could get a valid hit on a card with my name on it, they could use it as a secondary form of ID to bypass a security question or unlock a frozen file. They were trying to become me, or at least, they were trying to convince a system that they were authorized to act as me. I felt a cold shiver that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. This was frantic. This was sloppy. They were hitting buttons, trying to find a door that would open. I picked up my phone and took a screenshot of the attempted charge. I added it to the digital folder I had named the Cox Audit. I looked at the notifications still rolling in on Instagram. Strangers calling me a snake, telling me I should rot. "Keep talking," I whispered to the screen. "You are just the noise." I turned back to my monitors. I had the hard money inquiry. I had the suspended license. I had the stolen card attempts. But I was missing the centerpiece, the collateral. What asset did they think they could pledge to a lender? I opened the county property tax records. I typed in my own name. My bungalow came up. Clear title. No liens. I typed in my parents' names. Nothing. Then, I typed in the address of the one place that still held emotional weight in our family. The one place my mother had always believed she deserved, even though it was never hers. The house my grandmother left to me. I hit enter. The screen loaded, and the text blurred for a second as my pulse spiked. There was a flag on the property record, a pending filing status that had been updated yesterday afternoon. I was not fighting a family drama anymore. I was racing against a closing date. They were not just trying to make me pay for dinner. They were trying to sell my legacy out from under me. I reached for my coffee, but the cup was empty. I did not get up to refill it. I had work to do. The mob could have the morning. The afternoon belonged to me. The document on my screen was a PDF scan, grainy and slightly crooked, but the header was perfectly legible. It was a filing with the Mecklenburg County Register of Deeds, marked with a timestamp from yesterday afternoon at 4:15. It was not a sale deed, it was a deed of trust. In the world of real estate, a deed of trust is the security instrument that ties a loan to a property. It is the legal chain that says if you do not pay the money back, the lender takes the house. I looked at the borrower's name. It was listed as Brooklyn Cox. I looked at the lender. Quick Cash Hard Money. Lenders LLC. I looked at the principal amount. $180,000. My breath hitched in my throat. They were not just trying to scrape a few grand for a dinner. They were attempting to strip $180,000 of equity out of the house my grandmother had left me. This was the house I had restored with my own hands, the only place in the world where I felt safe. But how I had not signed anything. I had not spoken to a lender. Hard money lenders are predatory. Yes, but they still require a signature. They require a notary. You cannot just walk in and say you own a house and walk out with a check. I scrolled down to the signature page of the PDF. There was my name, Brooklyn Cox. I zoomed in until the pixels blurred. I stared at the curvature of the B, the loop of the Y. It was my handwriting. There was no doubt about it. It was not a forgery in the traditional sense where someone tries to copy your style and fails. This was my hand, but it was wrong. The Brooklyn Cox who signs forensic audit reports today uses a sharp, angular signature. It is efficient, illegible to the untrained eye, and slants heavily to the right. It is a signature born of reviewing thousands of documents a year. The signature on the screen was round. The letters were bubbled. The I in Brooklyn was dotted with a small, open circle that looked perilously close to a heart. It was the signature of a teenage girl. I closed my eyes, and the memory hit me with the force of a physical blow. I was 18 years old. It was August, 2 weeks before I was set to leave for college at UNC Chapel Hill. The kitchen in our old rental house smelled of pine sol and stale coffee. I was packing boxes, nervous and excited about escaping the suffocating gravity of my family. Lorraine had come into the room holding a thick manila envelope. She looked stressed, the way she always did when she was moving money around to cover the rent. "Brookie, honey," she had said, her voice smooth like warm butter. I need you to sign a few things before you go. Just standard forms. For financial aid. And in case of emergencies. You know, if you get sick at school and I need to talk to the doctors. Or if there is an issue with your tuition checks. I had been holding a stack of textbooks. I put them down. I did not read the papers. I trusted her. She was my mother. She was the one who made sure I had lunch money, even if it was just coins she found in the couch. I thought she was protecting me. I signed page after page, HIPAA release forms, FERPA waivers, and in the middle of that stack, buried like a landmine, was a durable general power of attorney. A power of attorney, or POA, is a legal weapon. It grants an agent the authority to act on your behalf in financial matters. You usually give it to a spouse or a lawyer, and usually for a specific time frame. But a durable POA does not expire. It survives until you die or until you actively revoke it. I opened my eyes and looked at the screen again. The document attached to the loan application was that same power of attorney, signed 12 years ago. The date next to my signature was faded, but the notary stamp a friend of my father's, who had likely stamped it without me even being present, was clear. They had kept it, for more than a decade. That piece of paper had been sitting in a drawer, likely underneath unpaid bills and lottery tickets. They had held on to it, waiting. They waited until I graduated. They waited until I got my CPA license. They waited until I inherited the house from Grandma. They waited until the property value skyrocketed in the post-pandemic market. They had been nurturing this fraud for 12 years. I checked the status of the loan application in the county system. Pending disbursement, clear to close, in the hard money world. Clear to close means the underwriting is done. The title work is clear. The only thing left is the wire transfer. I looked at the timeline. Hard money loans are famous for their speed. They do not take 30 days like a bank mortgage. They take a week. If this was filed yesterday, and the status was clear, the funds were scheduled to be wired within 36 to 48 hours. By Monday morning, $180,000 would hit an account controlled by my mother. By Monday afternoon, that money would be gone, funneled into Derek's crypto scams, Sierra's wardrobe, and Hank's gambling debts, and I would be left with a lien on my home if I did not pay the loan back, which I obviously would not. Since I would never see the money, Quick Cash would foreclose. They would take my house. Panic flared in my chest, hot and white. My first instinct was to call the police. I stopped myself. I dealt with white-collar crime for a living. I knew exactly what the police would say. "Ma'am, this looks like a civil matter. You signed the POA. Your mother is your legal agent. If you want to dispute it, you need to take it to civil court. By the time a civil judge looked at this, the money would be spent." I needed to stop the wire, and to do that, I needed more than just my word. I needed to prove that the power of attorney was being used fraudulently, with malicious intent, to defraud the principal. I needed to prove that they knew I would not consent to this. I needed a witness who knew the history. There was only one person in the Cox family orbit who had ever successfully escaped Lorraine's gravitational pull. I picked up my phone. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a rage so cold it felt like ice in my veins. I scrolled through my contacts until I found a number I had not dialed in 4 years. Aunt Renee. Renee was Lorraine's older sister. She was the black sheep. Not because she was a failure, but because she was the only one who told the truth. 10 years ago, Lorraine had guilt-tripped Renee into co-signing a car loan. When Lorraine stopped paying and hid the car to avoid repossession, Renee's credit was destroyed. Renee had walked into Lorraine's house, taken the keys, surrendered the car to the bank herself, and told Lorraine that if she ever spoke to her again, she would put her through a wall. They had not spoken since. I pressed call. It rang 4 times. I was about to hang up when a voice rasped on the other end. It sounded like Sandpaper and Virginia Slims. "I saw the video," Renee said. "No hello. No pleasantries. Your sister is a bad actress. She cries like she is trying to squeeze a lemon out of her eye." "Renee," I said, my voice steady, "they are not just doing a video. They are trying to mortgage my house." There was a silence on the other end, a long, heavy silence. Then I heard the flick of a lighter and a long inhale. "Explain," she said. I told her everything: the dinner, the decline slip, the credit inquiries, and finally, the power of attorney from 12 years ago that was currently sitting on a loan officer's desk at Quick Cash. "They kept the papers from before college," I said. "Lorraine is acting as my agent. She is taking out $180,000 against the bungalow." Renee exhaled, a long, hissing sound. "That woman is not a mother. She is a parasite with a perm." "I need to stop the wire," I said. "I am going to file an emergency injunction, but I need to build a case for fraud to kill the POA permanently. I need to know if she ever talked about this. Did she ever mention holding onto that paper?" "Brooklyn," Renee said, her voice dropping lower. "Why do you think I live where I live?" I paused. "You live in the apartment complex on Cedar Street, which is directly across the street from the rental house your parents are about to get evicted from," Renee said. "I moved there 6 months ago. I watch them. Brooklyn, I watch them like a hawk watches a nest of rats." I was stunned. "Why?" "Because I knew," she said. "I knew they were running out of road. Hank called me a year ago, begging for money. I told him to go to hell, but I knew when they got desperate, they would not go for strangers. They would go for family. I have been waiting for the day they eat down to the foundation, and you are the foundation. Honey," a chill went up my spine, "you have been watching them." "I have cameras pointing at their driveway," Renee said. "I have audio recordings of Hank bragging on his porch when he gets drunk, and I definitely heard them talking about the Brooklyn option 2 weeks ago." "The Brooklyn option," I repeated, feeling sick. "They were laughing about it," Renee said. "Derek was there. He said, 'She is too busy working to notice. By the time she finds out, we will have flipped the money into the crypto fund and paid it back.' They do not just want to steal it, Brooklyn. They are delusional enough to think they are investing it." "I need that audio," I said. "Renee, if I have audio of them conspiring to use the POA to bypass my consent, that proves intent to defraud. That kills the civil argument." "You come over here," Renee said. "I have a pot of coffee and a hard drive. But Brooklyn—" "Yeah." "Do not go over there," she warned. "Do not go to their house. Do not call them. Do not let them know you know. If they find out you are onto the loan, they will pressure the lender to expedite the wire. They will sign whatever fee waivers they have to sign to get the cash today." "I know," I said. "I need 48 hours of silence." "Then you better get offline," Renee said, "because your sister just posted another video. She is saying you are mentally unstable and that the family is considering a conservatorship to help you." I gripped the phone tighter. A conservatorship. That was their backup plan. If the power of attorney failed, or if I fought it, they would try to claim I was incompetent using the public meltdown they were manufacturing as evidence to gain control of my assets that way. It was the Britney Spears playbook, applied to a forensic accountant. "Let them post," I said cold. "Every lie they tell is just another line item on the indictment." "That is my girl," Renee said. "Get over here. Bring your laptop. We are going to war." I hung up. I stood in the center of my home office. The silence of the house felt different now. It was not peaceful. It was fragile. The walls, the floorboards, the roof over my head, it was all being leveraged by people who had never laid a brick in their lives. I looked at the framed diploma on my wall. I looked at my certified fraud examiner certificate. For years, I had treated my family with kid gloves. I had set boundaries. Sure, but I had never applied my professional skills to them. I thought it was too cruel. I thought you could not audit love, but this was not love. This was a hostile takeover. I opened my safe and took out an external hard drive. I packed my laptop. I grabbed my notary seal, not because I intended to use it, but because I needed to verify the stamps on their documents. I was not going to scream at them. I was not going to cry. I was going to do what I did best. I was going to follow the paper trail until it wrapped around their throats. I walked out of my house, locking the deadbolt with a new appreciation for the mechanics of security. I got into my car and drove toward Cedar Street. The sun was high in the sky now, burning off the morning mist. To the rest of Charlotte, it was just a Friday. People were thinking about happy hour. People were thinking about the weekend. I was thinking about the statute of limitations for wire fraud, which in North Carolina is long enough to ruin the rest of your life. I pulled up the address for the hard money lender on my phone's GPS, just to see where their office was. It was a strip mall operation on the edge of town. Shady, fast. Then I drove in the opposite direction, toward Aunt Renee's. The dinner bill was $6,000. The house was $180,000. But the cost of what they were about to pay, that was going to be incalculable. The lobby of Ledger Warden Forensics is designed to intimidate. It is a fortress of glass, polished concrete, and silence. We handle sensitive data for Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, and high-net-worth individuals who have been robbed by their own blood. The security protocols are tighter than a federal bank. You do not just walk in. You are scanned, verified, and escorted. So, when the intercom on my desk buzzed at 2:15 in the afternoon, shattering the quiet hum of my office, I knew something had gone wrong with the system. Ms. Cox. It was Sarah, the receptionist. Her voice was tight, pitched a little higher than usual. I have a gentleman here. He says he is your father. He is demanding to be let back. He is causing a disturbance. I looked up from the spreadsheet I was analyzing. My heart did not jump. It sank, heavy and cold, like a stone dropped into a well. Is he alone? I asked. Yes, but he is shouting about parental rights and something about a deadline, Sarah said. Security is stepping in. Do not let security touch him yet, I said, closing my laptop. I am coming out. I did not run. I walked. I smoothed my blazer, checked my reflection in the dark monitor of my computer, and put on my face, not my daughter face, my auditor face, the face that looks at a weeping embezzler and asks where the receipts for the boat are. When I reached the lobby, the scene was pathetic. Hank Cox, a man who once terrified me with just a look, was red-faced and sweating in a polo shirt that had seen better days. He was pointing a finger at the chest of a security guard who was a foot taller and 100 pounds heavier than him. She is my daughter, Hank was yelling, his voice echoing off the glass walls. I do not need an appointment to see my own flesh and blood. You tell her Hank is here. You tell her it is an emergency. I swiped my badge at the turnstile. The beep cut through his shouting. Hank, I said. He froze. He turned to me, and for a second, I saw relief wash over his face. Then, it hardened back into that familiar mask of entitlement. Brooklyn. He threw his hands up. Finally, do you know how these animals are treating me? I am your father. Tell them to back off. I did not signal the guards to leave. I simply nodded at them to stand down, but stay close. I walked over to the seating area, away from the receptionist's desk, and pointed to a low leather chair. You have 5 minutes, I said, and if you raise your voice again, I will have you removed for trespassing. Why are you here? Hank bristled, adjusting his pants as he sat down. He looked small in the modern, minimalist chair. He was carrying a thick manila envelope, clutching it like a shield. Is that how you talk to me? He huffed, wiping sweat from his forehead. After the stunt you pulled last night, leaving us there. Do you know how embarrassing that was? We had to call Derek's friend to bail us out. I am not here to discuss dinner, I said, checking my watch. You have 4 minutes. He gritted his teeth. He knew that tone. He hated that tone. It was the tone of someone he could no longer control. Fine, he spat. Business. We are here for business. Since you are so obsessed with money, let us talk money. He slammed the envelope onto the glass coffee table between us. Derek found an opportunity, Hank said, his voice shifting into a rehearsed cadence. It was the voice he used when he was trying to sell a used car with a transmission leak. A once-in-a-lifetime thing, exclusive, high yield, but the window is closing at 5 o'clock today. We need a bridge partner. A bridge partner, I repeated. It is a development project, Hank said, leaning forward. his eyes wide and desperate. Commercial real estate. Derek has the seller lined up. We just need to show proof of liquidity to lock in the contract. We do not even need your money. Brooklyn, we just need your signature. Just a guarantee. A cosign to show the bank we have backing. Derek will refinance in 30 days. And your name comes off. Easy. I looked at the envelope. Derek is a suspended real estate agent with judgments against him. You have a credit score that would not qualify for a library card. And you want me to co-sign a commercial loan. It is not a loan, Hank insisted. It is a liquidity proof. Just a formality. Look at the papers. Just look at them. I reached out and took the envelope. It felt heavy. I opened it and pulled out the stack of documents. The top page was a glossy, poorly printed cover sheet for something called Titanium Horizon Holdings. It had stock photos of skyscrapers and men shaking hands. It smelled of inkjet ink and desperation. I flipped past the fluff. I went straight to the legal blocks. It was not a proof of liquidity. It was a personal guarantee for a promissory note. The amount listed was $180,000. The borrower was listed as Titanium Horizon Holdings. The guarantor line was blank, waiting for a name, waiting for my name. Titanium Horizon Holdings, I said, reading the fine print. Registered agent Derek Miller. He is the CEO, Hank said proudly. He is building an empire. Brooklyn. You could be part of it, or you can sit here in your glass tower and be bitter. I ignored him. I pulled a small, high-intensity pen light from my pocket. It is a tool I keep on me for checking watermarks and paper fiber on the fly. I turned the light on and angled it obliquely across the signature page of the document. What are you doing? Hank asked, nervous. Quiet, I said. I shone the light across the paper at a low angle. The texture of the page jumped out in high relief. When you write on a piece of paper that is resting on top of another piece of paper, the pressure of the pen leaves invisible indentations or latent writing on the sheet beneath it. I moved the light over the blank signature line where I was supposed to sign. There were indentations there, deep ones. Someone had placed a piece of paper over this one and practiced signing a name. Over and over again, I could see the ghostly loops of a B, the sharp cross of a K. They had not just brought me a document to sign. They had been practicing forging my signature on top of this very document, likely to see if they could get it right before they came here. They had probably realized they could not replicate my current, complex, professional signature, so they decided to come here and bully me into signing it myself. You practiced, I said softly. What? Hank blinked. You or Derek, I said, keeping the light focused on the invisible grooves. You put a sheet of paper over this and practiced my signature. I can see the indentations. You were going to forge this. Were you not? But you got scared. You did not know which signature the bank had on file, the old one or the new one, so you came here to force my hand. Hank's face went from red to a pale, sickly gray. You are crazy. That is just paper texture. It is forensic evidence, I said. I snapped the light off and put the document back in the envelope. I did not give it back to him. I placed it on the table on my side. You are stealing from me, Hank, I said. Or trying to. Hank stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Stealing? How dare you? I am offering you a chance to help your family, you ungrateful brat. We fed you, we clothed you, and now you sit there with your fancy job and your flashlight, treating your father like a criminal. I am treating you like a suspect, I said, standing up to meet him. Because that is what you are, and you are not very good at it. I took a step closer. The air between us crackled. I know about the house, Hank, I said. The color drained from his face completely. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I know about the hard money loan with Quick Cash, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper that was louder than a scream. I know about the power of attorney you bullied me into signing when I was 18. I know you and Lorraine are 48 hours away from draining the equity in Grandma's bungalow. Hank looked like he had been slapped. He stumbled back a step. That is we needed. You needed money. I cut him off. So you decided to sell me out. You thought I was too busy working to notice. You thought if you created a big drama on social media, I would be too distracted to check the county registrar." Hank's shock turned into a cornered, animalistic rage. The mask of the businessman fell away, revealing the bully underneath. "It is my house," he screamed. The receptionist gasped. The security guards took a step forward. "It is my house," Hank roared, pointing a shaking finger at my face. "Your grandmother was my mother. That property belongs to the bloodline. It belongs to me. You only have it because she went senile and signed it over to the favorite grandchild. It is my inheritance you are hoarding." "She left it to me because she knew you would gamble it away in a week," I said coldly. "And she was right." "I have a right to that equity," Hank yelled, veins bulging in his neck. "I am the patriarch of this family. You are nothing but a bank account to us. You owe us for every meal, every pair of shoes, every day you lived under my roof. If I have to sign your name to get what is mine, I will do it. I will burn your whole world down to get what I am owed." He had said it. He had admitted intent. He had admitted the motive, and he had done it in a lobby full of witnesses and high-definition security cameras. "Thank you," I said. I turned to the head of security. "Paul, please remove this man from the premises. He is trespassing. He has just confessed to conspiracy to commit fraud and threatened me. I want a full incident report filed. And I want the footage from cameras 1, 2, and 3 saved to a secure drive immediately." Paul, the security guard, moved instantly. He grabbed Hank by the upper arm. "Let go of me," Hank shrieked, thrashing. "Brooklyn, you cannot do this. I am your father." "You are not my father," I said, looking him dead in the eye. "You are a liability, and I am writing you off." "Get him out," Paul said to the other guard. They dragged him toward the revolving doors. Hank was still screaming, cursing my name, calling me a traitor, a thief, a cold-hearted witch. The other people in the lobby, clients, couriers, staff were staring in horrified silence. I did not look away. I watched him until he was shoved out onto the sidewalk. I watched him bang his fists against the glass once, before realizing he was powerless, and then storm off toward the parking lot. Silence returned to the lobby. "I am so sorry, Ms. Cox," Sarah whispered from behind the desk. She looked shaken. "Do not be," I said. I picked up the manila envelope containing the document with the indented signatures. "He will not be back." I walked back to my office. My hands were steady. I placed the envelope on my desk and pulled a pair of latex gloves from my drawer. I carefully placed the document into an evidence bag, sealing it with tamper-evident tape. I initialed the seal, date, time, case reference. I picked up my phone and dialed Caleb Martin, my attorney. "Hey," Caleb answered. "I saw the social media stuff. You okay?" "I am fine," I said. "But we need to accelerate. Hank just came to my office. He tried to get me to sign a guarantee for a shell company, and when I caught him, he admitted to the scheme regarding the house. I have witnesses and security footage." "He admitted it?" Caleb asked, sounding stunned. "Out loud?" "Loud and clear," I said. "He screamed that he had a right to sign my name because he is the patriarch. It is all on tape." "That is the ball game for the restraining order," Caleb said. "I can get a judge to sign an emergency injunction to stop that wire transfer within the hour based on credible threat of fraud." "Do it," I said. "And Caleb, I want to file a police report for the attempted fraud with this document. I want it on record." "You are going to criminal?" he asked. "They are already there," I said. "I am just turning on the lights." I hung up. I turned back to my computer. I opened the credit bureau portals. Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. I placed a total freeze on my social security number. I added a fraud alert statement: "Do not extend credit without verbal password verification." Then I opened the county email system and drafted a message to the fraud division of the Register of Deeds, attaching the incident report number I was about to generate. I looked at the empty chair where Hank had sat. He had thought he could intimidate me. He thought he could use the weight of family to crush me. But pressure does not crush a diamond. It just makes it harder. And I was done being soft. The sky over Charlotte turned a bruised purple as I drove out of the parking garage. The humidity had finally broken, but not in a relieving way. It had collapsed into a torrential downpour, the kind that hammers against the roof of the car and turns the highway into a river of red taillights and blurred asphalt. My windshield wipers were slapping back and forth, fighting a losing battle against the water. I was gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. The adrenaline from the confrontation with Hank had not faded. It had curdled into a sick sense of foreboding. My phone rang through the car's Bluetooth system. The caller ID said Mom. I did not want to answer. I wanted to drive to the police station. I wanted to drive to the airport. I wanted to drive anywhere but toward the voice on the other end. But in my line of work, you never ignore the opposition when they reach out. You answer, you record. You listen for the slip-up. I tapped the screen. Hello, Lorraine, I said. I expected screaming. I expected the hysterical weeping she used to manipulate my father, or the shrill victimhood she used on her sister. Instead, her voice was terrifyingly calm. It was the flat, metallic tone of a woman who had stopped pretending to be human. Hank failed, she said. No greeting, no preamble. He always was too emotional. He tries to bully with noise. I told him that would not work on you anymore. You have become too hard. He committed a felony in my lobby, I said, keeping my eyes on the wet road. I have him on video admitting to fraud. The police have the footage. Lorraine. Police, she scoffed. It was a light, airy sound, devoid of fear. By the time the police file the paperwork, by the time a detective actually looks at it, the weekend will be over. Derek needs the money by Sunday night. Brooklyn, we do not have time for your little legal games. There is no money, I said. I stopped the wire. I alerted the lender. Did you, she asked, or did you just think you did? A chill went through me that was colder than the air conditioning. What do you mean? I asked. You are smart, Brooklyn. You always were. But you think in straight lines. You think about rules. You think if you say stop, the world stops. She paused, and I could hear her sipping something on the other end. I raised you. I know you. I know you think you owe us nothing. I owe you nothing, I said. I paid my way through college. I bought my own car. I bought my own house. You are a debt, Lorraine said. Her voice dropped, becoming razor sharp. Do you have any idea how much it costs to raise a child? The food, the clothes, the time. You are an investment. Brooklyn, I poured 18 years of capital into you, and for the last decade, you have refused to pay dividends. You think you can just walk away with the profit? No. I am calling in the note. I am a human being, not a stock portfolio, I said, fighting the urge to scream. You are whatever I say you are, she snapped. And right now, you are an obstacle. Derek told me you would try to block the loan. He said you would freeze the credit, so we decided to bypass the credit. You cannot bypass ownership, I said. The house is in my name. Is it? She whispered. I slammed on my brakes as a truck cut me off, the tires hydroplaning for a terrifying second before gripping the pavement again. What did you do? I demanded. I know where you keep the spare key. Brooklyn, she said softly. Under the false rock by the hydrangea bush. You never were very creative with security. You always thought the neighborhood was safe. My stomach dropped. Lorraine, if you are in my house— I am not in your house, she said, but the family is, and we know you are still 20 minutes away in this traffic. Drive safe. Honey, we will be waiting. The line went dead. I did not just drive. I floored it. I wove through the traffic on I-77, risking a ticket, risking a wreck. My mind was racing. The spare key, the power of attorney. What could they do in an hour? What could they do on a Friday evening? I turned off the highway and skidded onto my street. It was a quiet street, lined with old oaks and renovated bungalows. It was supposed to be my sanctuary. As I rounded the corner, I saw it. My house was lit up like a Christmas tree. Every light was on. The porch light, the living room lamps, the kitchen track lighting. It was blazing against the dark, rainy sky, and the porch. I pulled into the driveway and slammed the car into park. My headlights cut through the rain and illuminated the front of my home. My belongings were everywhere. My clothes were draped over the railing, soaking up the rainwater. My books, my expensive, leather-bound accounting texts, my novels, my yearbooks were piled in a heap on the steps, turning into sodden pulp. A box of my personal files had been upended, papers plastered to the wet concrete of the driveway. They had not just broken in, they had purged me. I opened the car door and stepped out. The rain hit me instantly, soaking my blazer, matting my hair to my face. I did not care. I marched up the walkway, my heels clicking on the wet pavement. I reached the front door. I grabbed the handle, locked. I jammed my key into the lock. It did not turn. I jiggled it. I tried to force it. It stopped halfway. They had changed the deadbolt. "Open the door," I shouted, the wind snatching the words from my mouth. "Open this door right now." Movement caught my eye. To the left, in the large bay window of the living room, the curtains were pulled back. Sierra was standing there. She was wearing one of my silk blouses, the one I had bought in Paris for my 30th birthday. She was holding a my wine glass. She looked at me standing in the rain, shivering and locked out. She did not look scared. She smiled, a slow, cruel smile. She raised the glass in a mock toast, then took a sip. She pulled her phone out and snapped a picture of me. I was the animal in the zoo. She was the spectator. The front door clicked. I spun around. Derek stood in the doorway. He was not wearing a suit. He was wearing my white plush bathrobe, the one with my monogram on the pocket. It was too small for him. The sleeves barely reached his forearms, and it gaped at his chest. It was a deliberate, grotesque mockery. He was leaning against the doorframe, looking comfortable, smug. "You are trespassing," I said, my voice shaking with cold and rage. "Get out of my house! Get out of my robe!" "Hey, sis," Derek said, picking his teeth. "You look like a drowned rat." Rough commute. "I called the police." I lied. "They are on their way." "Let them come," Derek said. He reached into the pocket of my robe and pulled out a folded document. "Civil matter. Remember, cops hate civil matters. They take one look at paperwork and tell you to call a judge on Monday." He held the paper up. It was a blue-backed legal document. "What is that?" I asked. "This," Derek said, unfurling it, "is a quitclaim deed, signed, notarized, and recorded electronically about 2 hours ago." I stared at the paper. "I did not sign that." "No, you did not," Derek grinned. "Lorraine did, as your attorney in fact. It turns out that power of attorney you signed allows her to conduct real estate transactions, including gifts. She gifted the property to Sierra Cox for the sum of $1 in love and affection." "That is fraud," I said. "Self-dealing, breach of fiduciary duty. It will be voided the second a judge sees it." "Maybe," Derek shrugged. "In 6 months, a year courts are backed up. Brooklyn, you know that. But as of right now, according to the county registry, this house belongs to Sierra. And since Sierra is my wife, and I am her guest, we are legal occupants. And since you are not on the deed anymore, well, you are the trespasser." "You are insane," I said. "You think this will work? You think you can just steal a house?" "We do not need to keep the house. Brooklyn," Derek said, his voice dropping low. "Conspiratorial. We just need the equity. See, now that Sierra owns it, she can take out a loan. We do not need your credit anymore. We have a private lender lined up who does not care about the chain of title as long as the deed is recorded. We are signing the mortgage papers tomorrow morning. Mobile notary coming right here to the kitchen table." I understood the play. It was breathtakingly reckless. But in the short term, it was effective. They were using the principle of adverse possession and title confusion. They had used the POA to transfer the title, even though it was fraudulent, on paper. Sierra was the owner right now, if I called the police. Derek would show them the new deed. The police would see two people claiming ownership and walk away, telling us to settle it in court. In the 48 hours it would take me to get an emergency hearing. They would mortgage the property with a predatory lender, take the cash, and disappear. By the time I got the house back, it would be saddled with a massive lien. They were willing to burn my home to get the cash. "You are going to go to prison," I said. "Not just jail, federal prison. This is wire fraud. This is money laundering." "Only if you catch us," Derek said. "And right now, you cannot even get in the front door." He stepped back and started to close the door. "Oh," he added, pausing, "we put your cat in the garage. Sierra is allergic. You might want to get him before he runs off." The door slammed shut. I heard the heavy thud of the new deadbolt sliding home. I stood there in the pouring rain. Water was dripping off my nose. My clothes were ruined. My home was occupied by parasites who were wearing my clothes and drinking my wine. I looked at the window. Sierra was still watching. Phone raised, recording my reaction. She wanted me to pick up a rock and throw it. She wanted me to kick the door. She wanted footage of the unstable, violent sister attacking her elderly parents' fragile family. If I lost control now, I gave them exactly what they needed. If I engaged, I became the aggressor. I looked at my boxes on the ground. My high school yearbooks were swelling with water. A photo album of my grandmother was floating in a puddle. I felt a scream building in my chest, a primal roar of violation. But I swallowed it. I swallowed it down until it burned like acid in my stomach. I was a forensic accountant. I did not fight with fists. I fought with patience. I turned away from the door. I walked over to the garage side door, which they had forgotten to lock, or perhaps they did not know the code. I punched it in. It opened. My cat, Ledger, was cowering under the workbench. I scooped him up. He was shivering. "It is okay," I whispered into his fur. "We are leaving." I carried him to the car and put him in the passenger seat. I did not look back at the house. I did not look at the window where Sierra was waiting for the show. I got in the car. I backed out of the driveway. As I drove away, I saw the silhouette of Derek in the doorway, watching me go. He thought he had won. He thought that by changing the locks and forging a deed, he had checkmated me. He did not understand what he had just done. He had not just stolen a house. He had trapped himself inside a crime scene. They wanted to play the possession game fine. I would let them have possession. I picked up my phone and dialed the one number that mattered now. "Caleb," I said when he answered, "do not file the restraining order yet." "What?" Caleb asked. "Why Brooklyn, if they are moving?" "They already moved," I said, my voice steady, cold, and absolutely devoid of mercy. "They transferred the deed. They are inside. They changed the locks." "Jesus," Caleb said. "I am calling the sheriff." "No," I said. "Let them stay. Let them sign the mortgage tomorrow. Let them take the money." "Brooklyn, are you in shock?" Caleb asked. If they take the money," I said, watching the rain smash against the windshield, "then the crime is consummated. It is no longer attempted fraud. It is completed federal wire fraud involving a financial institution. And once the money hits their account, we can trace it, we can freeze it, and we can bury them." "You want to use your house as bait?" Caleb asked quietly. "It is not a house anymore," I said. "It is a trap. I am coming to your office. Call Agent Reyes." I drove into the night. The rain washed away the tears I refused to cry. They wanted a war. They just invaded Russia in the winter, and I was going to let them freeze. I parked my car 3 houses down from my own, in the guest spot of the Cedar Street Apartments. The rain had slowed to a steady, miserable drizzle. I grabbed the carrier with Ledger, my cat, and ran across the wet pavement to the ground floor unit where Aunt Renee lived. She opened the door before I could knock. Renee was 65, wore silk kimonos as day wear, and held a cigarette like it was a scepter. She looked at me wet, shivering, holding a cat carrier, and then looked past me at the brightly lit bungalow across the street. "Come in," she said, her voice gravelly. "I made coffee. It is strong enough to strip paint. Her apartment was dark, illuminated mostly by the glow of a large computer monitor set up on her dining table. Renee was the neighborhood watch, but not the kind that complains about grass height. She was the kind that kept receipts. "You said you have them," I said, setting the cat carrier down and accepting a mug of black coffee. "Pull up a chair," Renee said. She sat down and clicked a mouse. "Camera 2 covers the driveway. Camera 3 covers the front porch. The audio pickup is high gain. I bought it to catch the mailman throwing my packages, but it works wonders for family treachery." She hit play. The timestamp on the video was 4:30 in the afternoon. I watched my own house on the screen. Derek's BMW pulled into the driveway. Sierra got out, looking around nervously. Hank and Lorraine followed in their rusted sedan. On the screen, Derek walked up to the front door. He was holding a cordless drill. "Listen," Renee said, turning up the speakers. The audio was crisp. I heard the whine of the drill as Derek attacked my deadbolt. "Are you sure this is okay?" Sierra's voice came through, tinny but clear. "What if she comes home?" "She is at work," Derek's voice replied. He sounded arrogant, bored. "She is pulling a 10-hour shift. I tracked her location on the family plan before I cut her off. We have got hours." Then came the moment that made my auditor's heart stop and then restart with a cold, rhythmic thud. Hank was standing on the porch, looking over his shoulder. "What about the deed? Is it filed?" "Done," Lorraine said. She was standing by the railing, smoking. "I signed it an hour ago. The clerk did not even blink. Power of attorney is a beautiful thing." "And she really did not know she signed it?" Derek asked, blowing sawdust off the lock mechanism. Lorraine laughed. It was a sound I remembered from my childhood, usually right before I got punished for something I did not do. "She was 18. Derek, I told her it was for financial aid forms and medical release. She signed a stack of 20 papers in 2 minutes. She never read a word. I told her, 'Trust your mother,' and she did." I felt the blood drain from my face. There it was. Fraud in the inducement, in the eyes of the law. A signature obtained by deception regarding the nature of the document is voidable. Lorraine had just confessed, on tape, that she had lied to me about what I was signing. She had admitted that the power of attorney was obtained through trickery. That made every action she took with it, including the quitclaim deed transferring my house to Sierra, illegal. "You got it," I whispered. "Intent, malice, admittance of the scheme." "I got more," Renee said. "Keep watching." On screen, the door swung open. The family cheered. They walked into my sanctuary as if they were conquering heroes. "They are going to mortgage it tomorrow," I said, standing up. "I need to get this to Caleb, and I need to get Agent Reyes involved. This is not just a civil dispute anymore. This is a criminal conspiracy." "Go," Renee said. "I will keep recording. If they even scratch a baseboard, I will have it on disc." I left Ledger with Renee, he liked her better anyway, and drove through the rain to the uptown offices of Martin Associates. It was 10 o'clock at night. The high-rise office was empty, save for the cleaning crew and one corner office where the lights were still blazing. Caleb Martin was my law school friend who had chosen corporate litigation while I chose forensics. He was loosening his tie when I walked in. Sitting across from him was Agent Marcus Reyes, a man I had worked with on 3 federal embezzlement cases. Reyes looked like he was carved out of granite, and he was currently eating a slice of pepperoni pizza. "You look like hell." "Brooklyn," Reyes said, not unkindly. "I feel like a target," I said. I threw my flash drive onto the desk. "Renee's footage is on there. Lorraine admits to tricking me into signing the power of attorney. Derek admits to tracking me. Hank admits to the plan." Caleb plugged the drive in. We watched the clip in silence. When it finished, Caleb let out a long, low whistle. "Okay, that is the smoking gun for the civil suit. I can get a temporary restraining order and a lis pendens filed on the house by 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. We can lock the title so tight they cannot borrow a dime against it." "No," I said. Both men looked at me. "If we block the title now," I said, pacing the room, "we save the house. but we lose the case. Brooklyn, Caleb warned. If they sign a loan with a hard money lender, unwinding that lien is going to be a nightmare. You could be in court for years. I do not care about the house right now, I said. I care about the pattern. Derek mentioned a bridge partner today. He mentioned Titanium Horizon Holdings. He is not just scamming me. He is desperate for cash to cover something else. If we stop them now, they just walk away with a slap on the wrist for trespassing. I want to know where the money is going. I looked at Reyes. I want to open a federal investigation. Tonight. Reyes wiped his hands on a napkin. You know I cannot open a file on a family squabble. Brooklyn, even with the fraud. The U.S. attorney will say it is a domestic civil issue. It is not domestic, I said. Give me access to the FinCEN database. Let me run Derek's entities. If I find structuring, if I find layering, will you pick it up? Reyes hesitated, then nodded. You have 2 hours. If you find a federal crime, I will make the call. I sat down at the spare terminal in Caleb's office. I logged into my proprietary analysis software, the one I paid $5,000 a year to license. I cracked my knuckles. I was not the victim anymore. I was the auditor. I started with Derek Miller. I pulled his bank records from a shared database we used for skip tracing. I saw the inflows and outflows. He is churning, I said, my eyes scanning the lines of data. Look at this. He has 4 accounts at 4 different regional banks. He is moving amounts just under $10,000 between them every 3 days. Structuring, Reyes said, leaning over my shoulder. Trying to avoid the currency transaction reports. But where's the money coming from? I asked. I traced the deposits. They were coming from a PayPal account and a Venmo business profile labeled Titanium Horizon Investment Fund. I drilled down into the Venmo transactions. The names of the senders were not venture capitalists. They were not banks. Esther Higgins, 78 years old, $5,000. Robert Pendleton, 82 years old, $12,000. Margaret Wu, 75 years old, $8,000. There were dozens of them. Small transfers, ranging from $2,000 to $20,000. All of them going into Derek's account, sitting there for 24 hours, and then being wired out to an offshore exchange in the Bahamas. He is running a crypto scam, I said, my stomach turning. He is targeting seniors. He is selling them tokens in this Titanium Horizon thing, promising them huge returns, and then funneling the money offshore. That is wire fraud, Reyes said, his voice hardening. That is elder abuse. That is federal jurisdiction. Wait, I said. There is more. I looked at the notes field on several of the transfers. One of them, from a woman named Beatrice Clark, read, "For Hank's special fund, God bless." Another read, "Tell Hank thank you for the tip." I stopped breathing for a second. "Hank," I whispered. "Your father?" Caleb asked. "He is the recruiter," I said, the realization hitting me like a physical weight. Derek is the tech guy. He sets up the wallets and the LLCs, but Derek is unlikable. He is slick. Seniors do not trust him. But Hank. Hank is the good old boy. Hank is the guy at the church social. Hank is the guy at the VFW hall. I pulled up Hank's recent location data from his social media check-ins. Tuesday, Sunrise Senior Living Center. Bingo night. Wednesday, St. Jude's Community Pancake Breakfast. Thursday, Veterans of Foreign Wars. Post 92. He is hunting them, I said. My voice sounded distant to my own ears. My father is going into retirement communities and church groups. He is using his charm to convince people on fixed incomes to give their life savings to his son-in-law. The dinner, the house, it all made sense now. They are bleeding, I said. The crypto market crashed 3 months ago. Derek's offshore accounts are probably frozen or empty. The investors these old people are asking for their dividends. Hank is panicking because his friends are asking where the money is. They need the $180,000 from your house to pay the dividends to the early investors, Reyes concluded. It is a Ponzi scheme, and the liquidity has dried up. They were going to feed my house into the machine just to buy themselves another month of freedom, I said. Caleb looked at me. Brooklyn, this is huge. If we go to the police now, we can arrest Derek. If we arrest Derek now, I said, staring at the screen, Hank will claim he was a victim too. He will say he did not know it was a scam. He will say he was just an investor. Lorraine will play the grieving mother. They will throw Derek under the bus, and they will walk away to scam someone else. I looked at the list of victims: Esther, Robert, Margaret, people who probably couldn't afford their prescriptions because of my father. We cannot just cut off the head, I said. We have to burn the whole root system. What do you want to do? Reyes asked. They are holding a party, I said. Tomorrow night. They think they have won. They are going to sign the mortgage papers in the morning, get the wire confirmation, and then throw a housewarming party in my living room to show off their success to their investors. I turned to Caleb. Let them sign the papers. Brooklyn, that is insane, Caleb said. You are letting them put a lien on your property. I am letting them commit bank fraud, I corrected. Once they sign those papers and accept the funds, they have defrauded a federally insured lender. That brings the FBI in with full force, and I want them to do it while they are bragging about it. I looked at Reyes. Can you get a team ready for tomorrow night? Reyes nodded slowly. If you are willing to take the risk on the property, I can have a task force on standby. We can coordinate with the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. If they are laundering money, the tax boys will want a piece of this. I want everyone, I said. I want the police. I want the FBI. I want the IRS. And I want the victims. The victims? Caleb asked. Sierra posted an invite to the party on Facebook. I said, she made it public. She wants a crowd. Let us give her a crowd. I spent the rest of the night in that office. We did not sleep. We built the case file. I printed out the flow of funds charts. I printed out the fake Titanium Horizon brochures Derek had emailed to victims. I overlaid the timestamps of Hank's visits to the nursing homes with the timestamps of the transfers. It was a mosaic of misery, and my family was the artist. Around 4 a.m, I stood by the window, looking out at the Charlotte skyline. The rain had stopped, but the city looked gray and washed out. I thought about the times Hank had borrowed money from me, promising to pay it back. I thought about Lorraine telling me I was selfish for saving for retirement. They had not just failed as parents. They had failed as human beings. We are done, I said to the room. Caleb looked up from a stack of affidavits. The TRO is drafted, but I will hold it in my pocket. If the raid goes wrong, I will file it Monday morning to save the house. The raid will not go wrong, Reyes said, checking his service weapon. Not with this much evidence. One more thing, I said. I need to send a message, just one, to ensure they do not cancel the party. I pulled out my phone. I opened the text thread with Sierra. I typed, "You win. I am tired of fighting. Enjoy the house. I am going to stay at a hotel and rethink things. Just do not trash the place. It was the white flag they were waiting for. It would make them cocky. It would make them feel safe." I hit send. Now, I said, turning back to the men. Let us talk about the guest list. The sun was beginning to crest over the horizon, casting a pale, cold light into the office. My eyes burned, but my mind was crystal clear. They wanted a luxury life. They wanted to be the center of attention. Tomorrow night, I was going to give them exactly what they wanted. The silence from my end was a calculated vacuum, in negotiation theory, and in interrogation. Silence is the thing that makes amateurs panic and narcissists overextend. My family, being a volatile cocktail of both, took my lack of response to the house theft as a total and complete surrender. I spent Saturday morning in a hotel room that smelled faintly of lemon polish and industrial carpet cleaner. I was not crying. I was not sleeping. I was sitting at a glass desk with 3 laptops open, watching my family hang themselves in real-time, high-definition resolution. Sierra had turned her Instagram stories into a documentary of her own crime. "Hey guys," she chirped in a video posted at 10:30 in the morning. She was standing in the middle of my living room, doing a 360-degree spin. The morning light, my morning light filtered in through the sheer curtains. So, big update. We finally moved into the new family estate. My husband, Derek, he is literally the best surprised me with the deed yesterday. He bought it cash, no mortgage, just boss moves. I paused the video. I zoomed in. Boss moves, I whispered, noting the timestamp. She claimed Derek bought it with cash. This was a critical piece of evidence, if Derek was claiming a cash purchase, but the county records showed a transfer for love and affection via a power of attorney, and then they subsequently took out a loan. Sierra was publicly lying about the source of funds. That went to the intent to deceive element of the fraud case. I let the video play. "We are turning this gloomy office into a glam room," Sierra announced, walking into my workspace. She kicked a box of my shredded files. "Good vibes only from now on. We are getting rid of all this boring paper stuff." She panned the camera across my desk. My heart stopped, then restarted with a predatory rhythm. In her haste to brag, Sierra had not cleared the desk. Behind her, stacked next to my ergonomic keyboard, was a pile of documents Derek must have left there after breaking in. I hit pause. I took a screenshot. I ran it through an image enhancement filter. The top document was clearly visible. It was a notice of right to cancel form standard for refinancing or lending transactions, but the date on it was pre-filled for today, and next to it lay a silver embossing seal. That seal did not belong to a notary. It was a corporate seal for Titanium Horizon Holdings. Sierra had just broadcasted the instruments of their forgery to 12,000 followers. "Got you," I said, saving the image to the master file. My phone buzzed. It was Caleb. "We are locked and loaded on the civil side," Caleb said. His voice was tight with the tension of the impending strike. "I have the temporary restraining order drafted. I have the lis pendens ready to file electronically. The second you give the signal, I hit enter. It will freeze the title so hard, even a nuclear blast could not shake it loose." "Hold it," I said. "Not until tonight. I need them to feel safe enough to sign the loan papers with the hard money guy this afternoon. If we freeze it now, the lender walks, and we lose the bank fraud charge." "You are playing a dangerous game." "Brooklyn," Caleb said, "if that lender wires the funds before we raid, and Derek moves it to crypto, it could be gone forever." "It will not be gone," I said, "because Agent Reyes is watching the pipes." I switched lines to the conference call with Agent Reyes and his contact at the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, a woman named Agent Harper. "We have run the numbers on your brother-in-law," Harper said. Her tone was dry, devoid of shock. She had seen it all before. "He reported an adjusted gross income of $12,000 last year, yet, based on your intel and his social media, he is leasing a BMW M5. Wearing a Rolex Submariner, which might be fake, but let us assume it is real, and now claiming to buy a house for cash. It is a classic net worth method case," I said. "Expenditures exceed reported sources of funds." "Exactly," Harper said. "But the bigger issue is the source of the deposits. We tracked the transfers you flagged. The investors. We have 18 confirmed elderly individuals who withdrew from their 401ks and savings accounts in the last 6 months to wire money to Derek's LLC. We are looking at over $400,000 in total misappropriation." "And Hank?" I asked. "We have witness statements from 2 nursing home directors." Reyes interjected. "Hank Cox was soliciting investment opportunities during bingo nights. He is the face of the operation. He is not just an accessory. Brooklyn. He is the primary salesperson." Hearing it confirmed by a federal agent hit different than knowing it in my gut. My father was not just a leech. He was a predator. He was hunting the vulnerable. "They are throwing a party tonight," I said. "They invited the investors. They are calling it a housewarming and investor appreciation gala." "Bold," Reyes said. "They think they are untouchable," I said. "They think they have successfully stolen the house, secured the loan to pay off the angry investors, and that I have run away with my tail between my legs. We need to make sure they do not cancel. Reyes said. If they get spooked, they might scatter. I looked at my phone. I had not spoken to any of them since Derek slammed the door in my face. I opened the text thread with Sierra. I typed carefully. I needed to sound beaten. I needed to sound like the Brooklyn they knew, the one who threw money at problems to make them go away. The one who valued dignity over conflict. You win, I typed. I am tired of fighting. Keep the house. I am going to stay at a hotel and rethink my life. Just do not trash the place. Go ahead with the party. I sent a gift. I hit send. It was the perfect bait. The mention of a gift would trigger their greed. They would assume I sent expensive wine, or maybe a check, as a peace offering. It validated their narrative that I was weak, and that they were the alphas. 3 minutes later, a reply popped up. Knew you would come around. We will save you a plate. Don't be weird. I set the phone down. Don't be weird, I repeated. Oh, Sierra. It is going to be so much worse than weird. I drove to Aunt Renee's apartment at 2 p.m. The rain had cleared, leaving the air thick and steamy. Renee was sitting by the window, her blinds angled down so she could see out, but no one could see in. The lender is there, Renee said without turning around. I looked through the slats. A black sedan was parked in my driveway. A man in a cheap suit was walking up to the porch, carrying a briefcase. That is the guy from Quick Cash, I said. I recognize the logo on the folder. And look who else is there, Renee said, pointing to the screen of her surveillance monitor. Another car had pulled up, a Honda Civic. A guy got out wearing jeans and a t-shirt, carrying a notary bag. That is not a notary, I said. That is Derek's friend, Mike. He used to work at a car dealership with him. Renee adjusted the audio gain on her directional microphone. Through the static, we could hear voices on the porch. Did you bring the stamp? Derek's voice. Yeah, I got it off Amazon. Mike's voice. It looks legit. North Carolina Notary Public. No name, just the state seal. Is the guy gonna look close? He just wants his commission, Derek said. He won't check. Just stamp where I tell you. I looked at Renee. She looked at me. Forgery of a public seal, I said. That is another felony to add to the pile. They are signing right now, Renee said. Watching the figures move into the living room, I felt a strange sense of detachment. Across the street, in the house where I had spent my weekends repainting the trim and planting hydrangeas, my family was signing my future away to a shark in a cheap suit, using a fake stamp bought online. Let them sign, I said. Once the ink is dry, the trap snaps shut. I opened my laptop. It was time to prepare the gift. My house was a smart home. I had installed a high-end mesh network, smart locks, and smart TVs in every room. When Derek changed the physical locks, he thought he had secured the perimeter, but he hadn't touched the router. He hadn't reset the passwords because he didn't know them, and he was too lazy to figure it out. I was still the administrator of the network. I logged into the router interface. I could see all their devices connected. Sierra's iPhone, Derek's MacBook, Hank's Galaxy. I could cut them off, but I didn't want to. I wanted to control the environment. I accessed the living room television, a 75-inch OLED screen mounted above the fireplace. It was currently off. Renee, I said, I am going to need you to upload the files to the cloud server. The evidence, all of it, I said. The bank statements, the flow of funds chart, the text messages, the video of them breaking in, the audio of the notary fraud. I spent the next 3 hours building the presentation. In my line of work, we call this a demonstrative exhibit. It is designed to explain complex financial crimes to a jury who might not understand accounting, but tonight, the jury would be the victims. I created a timeline. Slide 1, the lie. Sierra's social media posts claiming wealth. Slide 2. The truth, the credit reports showing insolvency. Slide 3. The theft, the POA document, the video of the break-in, the fake deed. Slide 4. The scam. The list of investors, the amounts taken, and the transfers to the offshore crypto exchange. I synced the presentation to a casting app on my phone. All I had to do was be within range of the Wi-Fi network, and I could hijack the TV screen. "It is 6 o'clock," Renee said. "Guests are arriving." I went to the window. It was a parade of tragedy. Old sedans were pulling up along the street. Elderly couples were getting out, dressed in their Sunday best. I saw canes. I saw walkers. These were the people Hank had charmed. They were walking up the driveway, looking at the house with awe. They thought this house was proof that their investment was safe. They thought they were coming to a celebration of their own wise financial decisions. Hank was at the door, greeting them, shaking hands, clapping men on the back. He looked expansive. He looked like the patriarch he always wanted to be. Lorraine was flitting around with a tray of hors d'oeuvres bought with these people's money. "It is disgusting," Renee said, blowing smoke at the window. "Look at him. He is smiling." "He won't be smiling for long," I said. My phone buzzed. It was Agent Reyes. "All units in position. We have plainclothes officers inside the perimeter. FBI and IRS are staging down the block. We wait for your signal." I stood up and smoothed my skirt. I wasn't wearing my business suit today. I was wearing a black dress. Simple, severe, funeral attire. "Are you ready?" Renee asked. "I have been ready for 30 years, I said. I picked up my purse. I checked to make sure I had the remote access app open on my phone. "I am going in," I said. "Be careful," Renee said. "A cornered rat bites." "I am not worried about the bite," I said, opening the door and stepping out into the humid evening. "I am the exterminator." I crossed the street. The noise from the party was already drifting out. Laughter, music, clinking glasses. I walked up the driveway, past the cars of the victims. I saw a banner hanging over the porch Titanium Horizon. "The future is here." I stepped onto the porch. The front door was open. The living room was packed. There were at least 40 people inside. The air smelled of cheap cologne and expensive catering. Sierra was in the corner, live streaming. "Look at this turnout. Guys, so much love in the room." Derek was holding court by the fireplace, a glass of champagne in his hand. He was wearing a new suit. Hank was laughing at a joke told by a man in a wheelchair. I stood in the doorway. I did not speak. I just stood there, slowly. The people near the door noticed me. The chatter died down in a ripple effect, spreading from the entrance to the back of the room. Lorraine saw me first. Her smile faltered, then hardened. She bustled over, her voice a hiss disguised as a greeting. "You came," she said, blocking me from the view of the main room. "I told you to stay away if you were going to cause a scene." "I am not here to cause a scene," I said, my voice carrying over the sudden silence. "I am here to deliver the gift." Hank looked up. He saw me. He paled, but then recovered. He raised his glass. "Brooklyn," he boomed. "Everyone, this is my daughter, the accountant. She finally made it to celebrate our success." He was trying to control the narrative. He was trying to fold me into the lie. I walked past Lorraine. I walked into the center of the room. I looked at the faces of the elderly guests. They looked back at me with friendly, hopeful eyes. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know that my presence meant their retirement was gone. "Hello?" I said. "Speech," Derek shouted, clearly drunk on adrenaline and cheap champagne. "Give us a speech, sis." "Okay," I said. "I will give you a speech." I pulled out my phone. I tapped the screen. Behind Derek, the massive 75-inch TV screen flickered. The looping screensaver of tropical beaches vanished. It went black. Then, a single line of text appeared in stark, white letters against the black background. "The Ledger of Truth." The music cut out. The room went deadly silent. "What is that?" Sierra asked, looking at the TV. "Derek, fix the TV." "I am fixing it," I said. I swiped my finger on my phone. The screen changed. It wasn't a beach. It wasn't a logo. It was a bank statement. Specifically, the bank statement for Titanium Horizon Holdings, and highlighted in red were the transfers out. To Binance Offshore Exchange, amount $420,000. Date yesterday. A murmur went through the crowd. "What is this?" a woman asked. "Why does it say offshore?" "Derek," Hank said, his voice trembling. "Turn it off." "I can't," Derek said, fumbling with the remote. "It's locked out." I looked at Derek. I looked at Hank. "You wanted to show everyone how you made your money," I said. "So let's show them." I swiped again. The screen changed to the video footage from yesterday. The drill. The break-in. That's my house," I said to the room. "And that is my family breaking into it." The glass in Derek's hand shattered as he dropped it. The party was over. The audit had begun. The humidity had turned the night air into a physical weight, pressing down on Cedar Street. From my vantage point behind the hedge of Aunt Renee's front yard, my house looked like a Carnival cruise ship that had run aground in a quiet suburb. It was 8:15 in the evening. The street, usually lined with modest sedans and SUVs, was choked with vehicles that didn't belong here. There were 2 leased Mercedes, a Range Rover that I knew for a fact was a rental, and a dozen older sensible cars, Buicks and Camrys belonging to the victims. Inside, the party was raging. The bass from the sound system was vibrating the front windows. "Showtime in 5 minutes," Agent Reyes said. He was standing next to me in the shadows, wearing a windbreaker that covered his tactical vest. His earpiece was coiled tight against his neck. Behind us, in the darkness of the side street, 2 unmarked vans were idling, their engines humming low. "Wait," I said, adjusting my own earpiece. "Not yet. Lorraine hasn't closed the deal." I was listening to the audio feed from the microphones Renee and I had planted. I could hear the clinking of glasses and the fake, performative laughter of my family. "I am telling you, Martha," Lorraine's voice cut through the static, clear and sharp. "It is not just a house, it is a legacy. Hank and I, we have been blessed, and we want to share that blessing." I watched through the living room window. Lorraine was cornering an elderly couple near the fireplace. I recognized them from the dossier, Mr. and Mrs. Abernathy. They were in their 80s. They had liquidated a bond portfolio just last week. "We have a special tier opening up tonight," Lorraine continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Derek calls it the Founder's Circle. $25,000 minimum buy-in, but the returns triple digits in 6 months." Hank stepped into the frame, nodding sagely, looking every inch the successful patriarch in a suit he had bought on credit 3 hours ago. "I put my own pension in, Bob," Hank said to the old man. "Safe as houses. Look around you. Would we be throwing a party like this if we were worried about money?" "That is it," Reyes whispered. "Solicitation of unregistered securities, fraud by wire, conspiracy." "Let her finish," I said, my hand gripping the cold metal of the fence. "I want them to feel the money in their hands before we break their fingers." "If you join tonight," Lorraine said, pouring champagne into the couple's glasses, "we can waive the management fee, but Derek says the fund closes at midnight." Mrs. Abernathy looked at her husband. She smiled, a fragile, hopeful smile. "Well, if Hank says it is safe." "It is done," I said to Reyes. "Take them." Reyes tapped his radio. "All units, green light, execute, execute." The world shifted gears from suspense to violence in the span of a heartbeat. 1 second, my house was a beacon of warm, golden light and jazz music. The next second, the power cut. I had killed the main breaker remotely from my phone. The music died with a groan. The lights vanished, plunging the party into sudden, confused darkness. Inside, screams erupted, the heavy, confused shouting of elderly guests stumbling in the dark. Then, the tactical lights hit. 4 massive LED floodlights, positioned by the FBI team in the yard, blasted beams of pure, blinding white light through the windows. The glass shattered visually under the glare. The house was no longer a home. It was a fishbowl. "Federal agents, nobody move." The front door was kicked open. It flew back against the wall with a crack that sounded like a gunshot. I walked up the driveway, flanked by Reyes and 2 uniformed officers. We moved through the chaos. Inside, the scene was a tableau of panic. The elderly guests were frozen, shielding their eyes from the blinding lights. The catering staff had dropped trays of shrimp and champagne, creating a slick, dangerous mess on the hardwood floors. "Stay where you are." Hands visible. I saw Sierra first. She was near the kitchen island. Her instinct wasn't to run. It was to content create. She was holding her phone up, the flashlight on, trying to live stream the raid. "Guys, oh my God, we are being swatted," she screamed at her screen. "This is harassment. My sister is crazy." A female officer stepped forward, grabbed Sierra's wrist, and twisted it efficiently. The phone clattered to the floor. "You are detained," the officer barked. "Hands behind your back." "Do not touch me," Sierra shrieked. "I am an influencer. You are violating my rights." I stepped into the living room. The air smelled of expensive perfume, ozone, and fear. Derek was standing by the fireplace, his face pale in the harsh tactical light. He was clutching a sheaf of papers, the forged deed, and the loan documents they had signed that afternoon. "This is my house," Derek screamed, his voice cracking. He waved the papers at the agents, pointing rifles at him. "I have the deed. I bought this house. Get out. You need a warrant." "We have a warrant," Reyes said, stepping into the light. "We have 3, actually. Search, seizure, and arrest." Derek looked wild. He spotted me standing behind Reyes. "You," he roared, pointing a shaking finger. "You did this, you jealous bitch." "You could not stand seeing us win. Could you? You called your little cop boyfriends to crash our party." Hank and Lorraine were huddled together near the sofa. Hank looked small. His posture collapsed. Lorraine, however, was scanning the room, her eyes darting, calculating, looking for an exit or a lie that could save her. "Officer," Lorraine said, stepping forward, her voice trembling with practiced victimhood. "Thank God you are here. My daughter is unstable. She has been stalking us. She cut the power. Please, make her leave." The audacity was breathtaking. Even with lasers pointed at their chests, they were still trying to run the con. "Quiet," I said. My voice was not loud, but it cut through the room. I walked past the tactical team. I stood in the center of the room, my heels crunching on broken glass. "Derek says he has papers," I said, looking at the terrified guests. "He says this is his house. He says he is a successful investor." I turned to the dark, massive TV screen above the fireplace. "I have papers too," I said, "but mine are digital." I tapped my phone. I had rigged the TV to a backup power supply unit hidden in the mantel earlier that week. It hummed to life, the only screen working in the room. The presentation I had built with Renee flashed onto the 75-inch display. Exhibit A, the cash flow, a complex, color-coded spiderweb of transactions appeared. "This," I said, pointing to the red lines, "is the money you gave them." I looked at Mr. Abernathy. "Robert, that is your $12,000. See where it went. It did not go into a housing development. It went to a crypto wallet in the Bahamas." The crowd gasped. "And here," I said, swiping the screen. "Esther, your $5,000? It was used to lease the BMW sitting in the driveway. You paid for Derek's car?" "Lies," Derek screamed, trying to lunge at me. 2 agents tackled him instantly, slamming him face first into the floor. "It is a glitch. She hacked the bank." "I did not hack the bank," I said calmly. "I audited it." I swiped to the next slide. Exhibit B, the theft. The video from yesterday played. The grainy, black and white footage of Derek drilling the lock. The audio played through the TV speakers, loud and distorted but undeniable. Derek's voice. "She is at work too easy." Lorraine's voice. "I told her to sign. She never read a word." The room went dead silent. The only sound was Derek grunting as he was cuffed and the soft sobbing of Mrs. Abernathy. Lorraine's face went white. She stared at the screen, watching herself admit to the fraud that started it all 12 years ago. "You recorded us," Lorraine whispered. "I record everything," I said. "I am a forensic accountant. Mother, you taught me that money leaves a trail, but you forgot that malice leaves a trail too." I turned back to the guests. You are eating shrimp paid for with stolen money, I said. You are drinking champagne bought with your own retirement funds. This house does not belong to them. It belongs to me. They stole the deed using a document I signed when I was a teenager. I looked at Hank. He was shaking his head, mumbling something. Hank, I said, tell them. I didn't know, Hank stammered, looking at the angry faces of his friends. I thought Derek said, Don't you dare, Derek yelled from the floor. You recruited them. You took the finder's fee. You knew. I trusted you. Mr. Abernathy shouted, stepping toward Hank, his cane raised. We played bingo together. You said you were helping us. Hank backed away, hitting the wall. Bob, please. It was an investment. Markets fluctuate. This wasn't the market, I said. This was a slaughter, I signaled Reyes. Clear the room, Reyes ordered. Process the suspects. We are taking the hard drives. We are taking the phones. We are taking everything. The guests began to file out, ushered by the police. They looked shell-shocked. Some were crying. Some were glaring at my parents with hatred that would last a lifetime. They realized now that the luxury they had been admiring was a mirage built on their own ruin. As the room cleared, leaving only the police and my family, the dynamic shifted. Sierra was crying in the corner, her makeup running. But my followers, they saw everything. Your followers just watched you get arrested for conspiracy, I said. You finally went viral. Sierra, congratulations. Lorraine stood alone in the center of the room. The lights from the tactical team made her look old, her skin papery, her eyes hollow. She looked at me. For a second, I thought she might apologize. You ungrateful child, she hissed. We were so close. We could have paid it back. We just needed time. You didn't need time, I said, turning off the TV screen, plunging the room back into the harsh glare of the police lights. You needed a victim, and I am done playing that role. I walked over to the table where the half-eaten cake sat. Happy Birthday, Sierra was written in icing. I dipped my finger into the icing and wiped it on a napkin. Party's over, I said. Get them out of my house. The sound of a zip tie tightening is distinct. It is a sharp, plastic zip that signals the end of freedom. In my line of work, I usually hear it on the news or in court testimony. Hearing it in my own living room, applied to the wrists of the man who had pledged to love and cherish my sister, was a surreal symphony of justice. The room was still bathed in the harsh, uncompromising glare of the tactical floodlights. The shadows had nowhere to hide, and neither did my family. Derek Miller, the man who had bragged about cash purchases and seven-figure mindsets just hours ago, was currently pressed against the hardwood floor by two federal agents. His face was distorted against the varnish. He was not fighting the agents physically. He was too much of a coward for that. He was fighting with his mouth. He was looking for an exit, and he realized the only door open was the one marked cooperation. I want a deal, Derek screamed, spit flying from his lips. I want to talk to the prosecutor. It wasn't me. I was just the tech guy. Agent Reyes stood over him, impassive. You are under arrest for wire fraud and conspiracy. Mr. Miller, you have the right to remain silent. I won't remain silent, Derek yelled, twisting his head to look at Sierra, who was being held by a female officer near the kitchen island. She knew Sierra knew everything. She was the one who told me which accounts to drain. She spent the money. Check her Amazon history. Check her closet. She is the beneficiary. The room went deadly quiet. The betrayal was absolute. It was not a slow leak. It was a dam breaking. Sierra's eyes went wide. She looked from Derek to the police, terror replacing the arrogance that had been her trademark for 30 years. What? She screeched. You liar, I didn't know anything. I thought you were a genius investor. I am just a wife. I am a victim here. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. Brooklyn, tell them I am just his wife. He lied to me too. I didn't know he was stealing. I looked at my sister. I looked at the tears streaming down her face, tears that were 50% fear and 50% performance. You didn't know, I repeated flatly. No. Sierra sobbed. I swear on my life. I turned to the television screen, which was still mirroring my laptop. Renee, I said into my earpiece. Play clip number 4. The video on the screen changed. It was the footage from yesterday afternoon, recorded by Renee's porch camera. The audio was crystal clear. On screen, Derek is drilling the lock. The door swings open. Sierra walks in. She spins around, laughing. Sierra's voice fills the room. Oh my God! Look at all this stuff. We should sell her furniture on Marketplace. Who is going to know? And Derek, make sure you transfer the crypto before she gets the foreclosure notice. I want that bag for the trip to Cabo. Derek's voice. Relax, babe. The money is already moving. Sierra's voice. Good. I deserve a vacation after dealing with her drama. The video cut to black. I looked back at Sierra. Her mouth was open, but no sound came out. The ignorant wife defense had just been incinerated by her own voice. You knew about the crypto, I said. You knew about the foreclosure plan. You discussed the money laundering. You are not a victim. Sierra, you are a co-conspirator. The female officer tightened her grip on Sierra's arm. Sierra Cox, you are under arrest. No, Sierra screamed, thrashing as the cuffs clicked onto her wrists. Brooklyn, you bitch, you ruined my life. You ruined it yourself, I said. I just kept the receipt. My mother, Lorraine, was watching this unfold with a look of horror. But it was not the horror of a mother seeing her children arrested. It was the horror of a general watching her soldiers surrender. She realized the flank had collapsed. She needed a new strategy. She straightened her back. She smoothed her dress. She turned to the lead FBI agent, her face composing itself into a mask of tragic concern. Officer, Lorraine said, her voice trembling perfectly, please, you have to understand. My daughter, Brooklyn. She gestured at me with a pitying look. She has been under a lot of stress. She had a breakdown last year. She imagines things. She creates these scenarios. She looked at the remaining guests, the victims who were still being processed by the police near the door. She hacked our accounts, Lorraine said, her voice gaining strength. She doctored those videos. She has always been jealous of Sierra. She is trying to frame us because we cut her off financially. She is unstable. We were going to have her committed for her own good. Ask anyone. It was a bold move, the gaslight defense, attempting to discredit the witness by claiming insanity. Agent Reyes looked at me. He didn't blink. He knew the file, but the crowd, the victims, looked confused. Lorraine was good. She sounded like a heartbroken mother. She is lying, Lorraine pressed, pointing at me. She is the one who stole the money. She is the accountant. She knows how to move numbers. We are just simple people. I felt a cold rage settle in my chest. It was icy and sharp. She was willing to send me to prison, willing to brand me as insane, just to save her own skin. Unstable, I said softly. I walked over to the audio setup. I have one more clip, I said to the room. This isn't from a camera. This is from a phone call, recorded yesterday evening at 5:42 p.m. while I was driving home in the rain. I hit the spacebar. Lorraine's voice boomed through the speakers. It wasn't the trembling, sweet voice she was using now. It was the voice of the predator. Lorraine's recording, Hank failed. He is too emotional. I told him bullying wouldn't work. I raised you. I know you. You are a debt I poured capital into. You have to pay, and I know where you keep the spare key. Brooklyn, drive safe. We will be waiting. My voice on the recording. Did you send him, Lorraine's recording? I sent him because Derek needs the money. We don't have time for your legal games. The recording ended. The silence in the room was absolute. The simple mother mask had slipped, revealing the cold, calculating operator underneath. I looked at Lorraine. Her face had gone the color of ash. You admitted to the conspiracy, I said. You admitted to sending Hank to my office to commit fraud. You admitted to breaking and entering, and you threatened me. Lorraine took a step back, her back hitting the wall. There was nowhere left to go. That is edited, she whispered, but the conviction was gone. It is digitally time-stamped and verified by the carrier, I said, And it is admissible. Then, a movement caught my eye. Hank. My father was standing near the patio door. He looked like a deflated balloon. The swagger was gone. The patriarch act had dissolved. He looked at Derek being dragged away. He looked at Sierra screaming. He looked at Lorraine pinned against the wall by her own words. He looked at me. Tears welled up in his eyes. Real tears, maybe. Or maybe just the tears of a man who realizes the casino is closed. "Brookie," he croaked. He took a step toward me, his hands out, palms up. "Brookie, please," he said, his voice breaking. "You know me. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just wanted to help the family. I didn't know about the offshore accounts. You have to believe me." He looked at Agent Reyes, then back at me. "Talk to them, baby," he pleaded. "Tell them your dad isn't a bad guy. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. You can fix this. You always fix it. Just speak for me." I looked at the man who had taught me to ride a bike, and then taught me that love was transactional. I looked at the man who had stolen from his friends to impress strangers. He wanted me to save him. He wanted the old Brooklyn the fixer, the doormat. I took a deep breath. The air in the room felt cleaner now, as if the lies were being sucked out by the ventilation system. "I cannot speak for you, Hank," I said. My voice was steady. It did not waver. "Why?" he cried. "I am your father." "I only speak the truth," I said, looking him dead in the eye. "The law speaks the rest." I turned to Agent Reyes. "Agent, do you have the indictment?" Reyes stepped forward. He pulled a folded document from his vest. He didn't look at Hank as a person. He looked at him as a subject. "Hank Cox, Lorraine Cox," Reyes announced, his voice booming with official authority. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, bank fraud, theft by deception, and money laundering." He turned to Lorraine. "Additionally, based on the disparity between your lifestyle and your filings, the IRS Criminal Investigation Division is charging you with 4 counts of tax evasion." Lorraine let out a gasp that sounded like a dying animal. Tax evasion. The one thing that terrified people more than the FBI. You can argue intent with fraud. You cannot argue math with the IRS. And, Reyes added, looking at the fake notary seal on the table, forgery of a public instrument. Hank collapsed. He didn't fall. He just sank, his knees giving way as if his skeleton had been removed. He sat on the floor, weeping into his hands. "How could you—" The voice came from the entryway. I turned. It was Mr. Abernathy. He hadn't left with the other victims. He was standing there, leaning heavily on his cane, his face red with a mixture of shame and fury. He walked over to Hank. He looked down at the man sobbing on the floor. "We trusted you, Hank," Mr. Abernathy said. His voice shook. "I gave you the money for my wife's care facility. You told me it was safe. You sat at my table and ate my food." Hank looked up, his face wet and red. "Bob, Did you take it?" Mr. Abernathy demanded. "Did you take the fund money?" Hank opened his mouth to lie, but he looked at the screen where the bank transfers were still glowing in red. He looked at me. He saw no mercy. He closed his mouth and looked down. "You coward," Mr. Abernathy spat. "I hope you rot." The officers moved in. They pulled Hank to his feet. The cuffs clicked. Lorraine was next. She held her head high for a moment, trying to maintain some shred of dignity, but as the metal touched her skin, she flinched. "This is a mistake," she muttered to the air. "My daughter is ungrateful, after everything I did." "Take them to the transport," Reyes ordered. "Wait," I said. The room froze. I walked over to Sierra. She was cuffed, standing next to the female officer. She was wearing a black dress, my black dress, and on her feet were my limited edition Louboutin heels, the ones I had bought after my first big promotion. "You are wearing my shoes," I said. Sierra blinked, sniffing. "What?" "The dress," I said. "And the shoes. They are mine. You stole them from my closet when you broke in." "I can't take them off," Sierra stammered. I am handcuffed. I don't care, I said. I am not letting you walk out of here wearing my property. I am not letting you parade in front of the cameras looking like you own anything. I looked at the female officer. Officer, those items are stolen property listed in the police report. I would like them recovered. Now. The officer nodded. She uncuffed one of Sierra's hands. Take them off, ma'am. Here, Sierra cried, in front of everyone. Now, the officer said. Sierra struggled out of the heels. She stood barefoot on the hardwood floor, shrinking 3 inches in height and losing a mile in attitude. The dress, I said. I can't take the dress off, Sierra screamed. I am naked underneath. You want me to walk out naked? I looked at the pile of wet clothes on the patio where they had thrown my belongings earlier. I walked over, picked up a soggy, mud-stained, oversized t-shirt that belonged to Derek. I tossed it at her. Put that on, I said. It fits the aesthetic, Sierra sobbed as she shimmied out of my dress and pulled the dirty, wet t-shirt over her head. She looked pathetic. She looked like exactly what she was, a fraud who had been stripped of her costume. Take them, I said to the officers. The procession began. I stood in the doorway of my house, my reclaimed territory, and watched. The street outside was a sea of flashing blue and red lights. The neighbors had come out. The victims were standing by their cars. And in a twist of poetic justice, half the neighborhood had their phones out. Sierra had wanted to be famous. She had wanted to be an influencer. As the officers led her down the driveway, barefoot, wearing a dirty t-shirt and handcuffs, the phones were recording. She tried to hide her face, ducking her head. Chin up, Sierra, I whispered. It is for the gram. Derek was shoved into the back of a squad car, still yelling about a plea deal. Hank was led past the people he had scammed. He couldn't look them in the eye. He stared at his feet. A broken man who had gambled his family and lost. Lorraine was the last to go. She paused at the door of the police van. She looked back at the house. She looked at the lights, the luxury she had tasted for 24 hours. Then she looked at me standing on the porch. She didn't wave. She didn't scream. She just looked old. The van door slammed shut, severing the connection forever. The engines roared. The sirens chirped. The convoy moved out, taking the toxicity with it. I stood there for a long time. The humidity was breaking again. A cool breeze swept down the street. Agent Reyes walked up the driveway. He looked tired. We got the hard drives, he said. We have the transfers. We have enough to put them away for 20 years. The IRS agents are already putting liens on Derek's accounts. We might be able to recover about 60 cents on the dollar for the victims. 60 is better than 0, I said. You okay? Reyes asked. I looked at the empty street. The flashing lights were gone, leaving only the quiet dark of the suburbs. I don't know, I said honestly. I just sent my entire family to federal prison. You didn't send them, Reyes said, putting a hand on my shoulder. They bought the ticket. You just checked the stub. He walked away to his car. I turned back to the house. The door was broken. The floor was covered in glass and icing. The air still smelled of their cheap perfume. But it was quiet. For the first time in my life, the noise in my head, the guilt, the obligation, the fear of their judgment was gone. I walked inside and closed the door. It wouldn't lock, but that was okay. The real threat had already been removed. The silence that follows a raid is heavier than the noise that precedes it. When the last police cruiser turned the corner, its taillights fading into the humid Charlotte darkness. The sudden absence of sirens left a ringing in my ears. The floodlights were gone. The shouting was gone. The fake laughter of the party was gone. My house stood open to the night air. The front door, fractured near the deadbolt from the battering ram, hung loosely on its hinges. Yellow tape fluttered lazily from the porch railing. A plastic garland that marked the boundary between a home and a crime scene. I walked back inside. The living room was a wreckage of interrupted gluttony. Half-eaten shrimp cocktails sat warming on the coffee table. Champagne flutes were overturned, spilling sticky puddles onto my hardwood floors. The 75-inch television screen was still black. The damning presentation finally turned off. but the ghost of the images it had displayed seemed to hang in the air. I stepped over a crushed party hat. I did not cry. Crying implies a loss, and I had not lost anything tonight that I had not already lost 20 years ago. I was just finally signing the paperwork to acknowledge it. Agent Reyes had left a team behind to bag the rest of the physical evidence. 2 junior officers were in the kitchen, carefully sealing Derek's laptop and Sierra's phone into anti-static bags. "We are done here, Ms. Cox," one of the officers said, stripping off his latex gloves. "The scene is released back to you. We have secured the digital devices, the financial documents, and the forged deed. The house is yours again." "Thank you," I said. My voice was hoarse. "We will have a locksmith here in 20 minutes to secure the front door," he added. Agent Reyes ordered it on the department's dime. He said it was the least we could do. "That was kind of him," I said. I walked to the kitchen island. There was a smear of icing where I had wiped the cake. I picked up a wet rag and wiped it away. One swipe, clean. If only the rest of the memories could be removed with a paper towel. My phone rang. It was Caleb. "It is confirmed," Caleb said, his voice breathless with relief. "I just got off the phone with the legal department at the hard money lender. They froze the wire transfer. It was sitting in the queue. Brooklyn. It was scheduled to go out at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. If we had waited even 12 hours, that money would have hit Lorraine's account, and Derek would have washed it through the crypto exchange." "So the house is safe," I said, leaning against the counter. "The house is safe," Caleb said. "The lien is void. The deed they filed has been flagged as fraudulent by the Register of Deeds. We stopped the bleeding. Brooklyn, we balanced the books." "Thanks, Caleb," I said. "Send the bill to my office." "Pro bono," Caleb said. "Seeing Hank Cox get walked out in cuffs was payment enough. Go to sleep. Brooklyn." I hung up. I didn't want to sleep. I wanted to scrub. I spent the next hour moving through the house with a garbage bag. I didn't clean the floors that could wait for the professionals. I cleaned out the presence of my family. I went to the guest room where they had dumped my clothes. I found Derek's toiletry bag. I threw it in the trash. I found Sierra's makeup kit, the one she used to paint on her innocent face. Trash. I found Lorraine's shawl draped over my reading chair. Trash. I was not just cleaning a house. I was excising a tumor. I walked out to the driveway as the locksmith van pulled up. The air was cooling down. The humidity had finally broken, leaving the night crisp and clear. Agent Reyes was standing by his car, filling out paperwork on the hood. He looked up as I approached. "This is going to be a long one," Reyes said, tapping his pen on the file. "We are looking at a RICO predicate here. It is not just your family. We found emails on Derek's laptop linking him to 2 other investment groups in Florida and Georgia. This was a franchise. Brooklyn, your father was just the local branch manager." "He was good at it," I said, looking at the empty street where the victims had parked. "He always could sell sand to a beach owner." "The victims are going to get help," Reyes said, "since we caught the funds before they were fully layered offshore. And since we seized the assets tonight, including the cash Derek had in a safe we found in his trunk, the restitution process will be substantial. They won't get everything back. But they won't be destitute." "That is good," I said. "That is the only thing that matters. One more thing," Reyes said. He opened the back door of his car. "I have someone who wants to say something before we transport her to the federal holding facility." He signaled to the officer in the back seat. The officer opened the door and helped Sierra out. My sister looked like a different species than the one that had live-streamed her arrival earlier that day. She was wearing Derek's dirty t-shirt. Her face was swollen from crying. She was barefoot on the asphalt. She looked at me, shivering. "Brooklyn," she whimpered. "You have 2 minutes," I said, crossing my arms. "They are saying I am looking at 5 years." Sierra sobbed. 5 years. Brooklyn, I can't go to prison. I am not built for that. You have to help me. You have to tell them I was coerced. Tell them Derek made me do it." I looked at her. I saw the girl I used to share a room with. I saw the girl I used to protect from bullies. But I also saw the woman who laughed while her husband drilled the lock off my door. "You have a choice," Sierra, I said coldly, the feds love a witness. If you testify against Derek, against Hank, against Lorraine, if you give them every password, every email, every conversation, you might get a deal. You might get probation. Sierra's eyes widened. But that is Mom and Dad. You want me to rat on Mom and Dad? I don't want you to do anything, I said. I am telling you how the ledger works. You can carry the debt with them, or you can write them off and save yourself. Choose. But what about you? She asked, her voice trembling. Won't you help me? Get me a lawyer? I stepped closer to her. I am the reason you are in handcuffs. Sierra, I am not your savior. I am the auditor, and your account is closed. I signaled the officer. Put her back in, Sierra wailed as she was guided back into the cruiser. I didn't watch her go. Another vehicle was waiting. The transport van. The back doors were open. Lorraine was sitting inside, handcuffed to the bench. She looked up as I walked by. Her eyes were dry. She had moved past panic into a cold, hard resentment. Come to gloat, she asked. Her voice was raspy. No, I said. Just checking the inventory. Lorraine leaned forward as far as the chains would allow. You think you won. You think because you have the house, you are safe, but you will always be alone. Brooklyn, we were the only people who ever loved you, even if we loved your money more. Who is going to come to your Christmas dinner now? It was her final weapon, the fear of loneliness, the weapon she had used to keep me paying for 30 years. I looked at her. I looked at the woman who had tricked an 18-year-old girl into signing away her future. I would rather eat alone, I said, than feed a parasite. I am your mother, she snapped, the mask slipping one last time. I gave you life. You owe me. You owe me this house. You owe me that dinner. Lorraine, I said. She froze. I had never called her by her first name. You wanted me to pay the bill, I said, my voice steady and final. You wanted me to cover the cost of your lifestyle. Well, I paid it. I paid it with the file I gave the FBI. I paid it with the recordings. I paid it with the evidence. I leaned in closer. The transaction is complete, I whispered. Do not send another invoice. The guard slammed the van doors shut. I watched the heavy metal latch click into place. It was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. The van drove away. The police cars followed. I was left standing in the driveway under the moonlight. Coffee, a voice rasped from behind me. I turned. Aunt Renee was walking across the street, wearing a floral bathrobe and holding 2 mugs. I figured you might need this, she said, handing me one. It is decaf. You have had enough adrenaline to jump-start a tank. We stood there for a moment, sipping the hot liquid, looking at the quiet house. So, Renee said, lighting a cigarette, they are gone. They are gone, I said. Federal holding, no bail for RICO cases. Good, Renee said. She blew a plume of smoke into the cool air. Don't you dare feel sorry for them. Brooklyn. I don't, I said. I feel empty. That is normal, Renee said. You just spent your whole life holding up a wall so it wouldn't fall on you. Now the wall is gone, and your muscles don't know what to do with the lack of weight. She looked at me, her eyes sharp and intelligent. You didn't just put them in jail, honey, Renee said. You buried the illusion. You killed the idea that they were ever going to change. That hurts. It is a death. You have to mourn the family you wanted, not the one you had. They wanted to sell the house, I said, looking at the bungalow. They wanted to strip it down to the studs. But they didn't, Renee said. Because you are made of sterner stuff than wood and brick. The locksmith van pulled away. The new technician waved at me. New deadbolt is installed. Ma'am, keys are on the kitchen counter. Go on, Renee said, nudging me. Go lock your door. I will be across the street if you need me. And Brooklyn. Yeah. Come over for Christmas, she said. I make a terrible turkey, but the company is honest. I smiled. It was a small, weak smile, but it was real. I will bring the wine, and I will pay for it myself. Renee laughed and walked back across the street. I walked into my house. It was quiet. Not the tense silence of a family dinner where everyone is waiting for the bill to arrive. Not the suffocating silence of secrets being kept. It was the silence of ownership. I walked to the front door. I picked up the new keys. They were heavy, cold, and clean. I closed the door. I turned the deadbolt. The thunk of the steel sliding into the frame echoed through the hallway. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door. For years, I had been an accountant for emotional bankruptcy. I had audited guilt, balanced shame, and subsidized betrayal. I had walked into that restaurant thinking I was paying for a dinner. I ended up paying for my freedom. I turned around and looked at my empty, messy, beautiful living room. My parents enjoyed their luxury dinner. They enjoyed their moment of triumph. They expected me to pay, and I did. I paid them with the only currency that matters, in the end, the undeniable, unalterable truth. And for the first time in my life, my ledger was perfectly balanced. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I poured a lot of emotion into Brooklyn's journey, and I hope you felt every twist and turn of her revenge. I would love to know where you are tuning in from today. Are you listening from a quiet room like Brooklyn's, or are you on the go? Please drop a comment below with your location, and let me know what you thought of the ending. If you enjoyed seeing justice served cold, please make sure to subscribe to the Maya Revenge Stories channel. Hit that like button to support the content, and smash the hype button to help this story reach more people who need to see the truth win. See you in the next story.